see how you can have Pecor 3 without all the businesses reopening. No matter how you feel about it. 8:32. Let's head in the Zoom room where Senator Frank Blas Jr. is standing by. He is the vice chair for the Senator. Is it Committee on Public Safety? Is that what it is?
Yes, it is. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice background. Wow.
Oh, thank you. It was a photo that I took during the lockdown. I saw it was beautiful and decided to take it.
Well, you can't lock down the sunset, Governor.
There you go. Nor can you lock down the two guys that were in the water, or the one guy and the lady.
Oh yeah, they're not social distancing. They look like about 4 feet. Oh, man.
Yeah, you have to go into. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Good morning, Bree. So there was a release that came out from Senator Pito's office.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
I know Adriana, she's been following up on everything that's been coming out of the courts. And she obviously naturally went to the oversight chair of public safety, Senator Pito Terlahi, for a comment on, are you going to hold any oversight hearings? Are you concerned? What are you going to do? This is the second time these allegations have come forward about crooked cops. Matter of fact, his son, Joey Terlahi, has been named a couple times in some of these court hearings. And so, yeah, she reached out to him, and then I believe he came out with a statement regarding, I guess, his vice chair of the Committee on Public Safety to, I think, either conduct oversight hearings or take it over in terms of these allegations. So that's why we brought you in here.
Yeah, and I appreciate and thank you. And I guess as Chris will tell you, when he sent me the text and asked me to be on the show this morning to talk about the press release and the new role, my response to him was, what press release and what new role? so it came as a surprise. I was not informed, apparently before the release, and apparently as well, until a couple of days after the release, I guess. That said, though, is I had a brief conversation with Senator Terlahi, and initially, when we started, he had asked me to be his vice chair for public safety, and of course, I accepted. I thanked him for that. But in yesterday's conversation, I had asked, I said, okay, what is this new role, and what is your expectation, or the expectation that I should be aware of? And he said that there has been concern, and there is, rightly so, there's been concern in the community about, first off, the state of our public safety, but also more specifically about the trust that the community has in our law enforcement community and our law enforcement officers, based on a number of different allegations. So, I basically got the thank you, Chris, for the letter.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So I went through that, and today I'm actually having meeting with my staff to lay out first off, what course of action can we take, recognizing that we have in government, we have our own role. I don't have no intentions of crossing over, nor do I want to be able to take part or to be an impediment or to pry into ongoing investigations if there are. Okay. So there's a very fine line to be able to that I'm going to have to make sure that I stay on my side of it, so that I guess my role would be, okay, what resources, where are you at, and what resources do you need? The specifics of this, that's law enforcement. That's that side of the house, and eventually, if there is, that belongs to the judicial side, not in the legislative hall. We're not there to prosecute criminally or otherwise. just help them to be able to fix the gaps. Or first off, identify what these gaps are, and then find ways to help them to fix it. So that's what my role is going to be.
Okay. And how soon are you looking into possibly ramping up this whole?
If I could, guys,
Yeah.
sorry to break in. Let me just go ahead and read this letter here from Senator Pito, if you guys don't mind. And it's a letter that he penned to the Chief of Police, Chief Ignacio. Dear Chief Ignacio, recent media reports of possible corruption in our public safety agencies have created a cloud of mistrust and suspicion over our public safety agencies. The very integrity of our public safety agencies is under scrutiny in the public eye. For transparency's sake, for the sake of the trust of the people of Guam, I'm requesting that the Guam Police Department launch a multi-agency internal affairs investigation into allegations. Specifically, these should be investigated: the tampering of warrants in the court system, alleged physical abuse by public safety officers mentioned in federal court, the alleged involvement of public safety officers in the drug trade. I realize that several of these allegations would involve investigating a member of my immediate family. This must not prevent you from conducting this investigation. We must hold everyone accountable, no matter the family relations. These charges should be fully investigated and fully vetted by an official investigation, and for the truth to come out. To prevent the taint of conflict of interest in this investigation, all oversight duties related to this investigation or these internal affairs issues shall be empowered upon the co-chairman of the Committee on Public Safety, the Honorable Senator Frank Blas Jr. The people of Guam deserve to know the truth. We cannot leave a cloud of suspicion hanging for years over our public safety system. Let us lift that cloud with the light of the truth, for only the truth can set anyone free. Respectfully, Senator. That was kind of cliche, but anyway. So guess what?
Yeah.
You got a new role, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you for informing me. and I tell you, I recognize that this is a concern, a great concern with the community, and but at the same time, I've got to make the powers that be, those that are in law enforcement, be able to do their job. I once wore their shoes, and so I recognize, and I know the need to be able to inform the community of what's going on in an investigation. But sometimes putting this information out before we can actually build the case would actually hurt it, and I don't want me nor any direction from me to do this. At the same time, I know that the community is going to want to know if there are any actions that are being taken to ensure that the law enforcement community, our police officers, our customs officers, marshals, whatnot, uphold those standards that are expected by the community, because they have that responsibility to protect. And so that's the role that that we're going to play. And when I say we, is me along with members of the committee that I am going to lean on and also seek their assistance and their help in being able to unravel this, if you will.
Bree, what was the comment that Sergeant Tapao had come out with after the Mayo trial? This stuff came out in the Mayo trial. They had said something like if they heard about anything, they would investigate it, or
Something like that. Yeah.
So, Senator, let me ask you this: are you surprised at all that we haven't already seen an investigation of this type, given that some of these revelations came out as far back as former Joint Mayor Jesse Blas's trial?
I think more so, Chris. I mean, maybe the surprise is that we've not seen, or there hasn't been any arrests or indictments, if you will. That's not to say that if there is some validity and there is a way that law enforcement can be able to piece this so that they do go to trial and there is a prosecution, that we don't see any of that. and again, taking from experience, these type of investigations, are not one of those things that you can wrap up in an hour. I once joked, I said, back in the days when you look at law enforcement, SVU, and Miami Vice and whatnot, it says I'd be glad, I'd love to be able to solve a major investigation in 1 hour minus all the commercials, but that's not the case. Okay, and so I've got to respect that, and first off assume that there are investigations that are going on. I also expect that I'm going to recognize that in my future conversation, in my what inevitable conversations that I'm going to have with law enforcement officials, that these are not going to include the intricacies of what is going on in an investigation or who their targets are, if there are any targets. I recognize that. And so I just want to, is there anything that they need or they're doing that they're going to need help on that I can assist in? And we'll take it from there. We may get frustrated, and the community may become frustrated if, there's a report that says, okay, they feel that they have it under control. You know what? I can't overstep my bounds and basically go into the weeds of their, for lack, no pun intended, of their investigations or their operations. Okay, that's an executive branch function. That's not a legislative branch function. And so I've got to respect that, and I got to work with around those. I don't want to say impediments, but I got to work around those barriers.
Right.
Within those barriers.
That seems like you might be getting that a lot because who's to say that they might just tell you, oh, we have an active investigation, we can't tell you any information. I mean, we get that all the time from law enforcement. But at the same time, I mean, how can we trust that these law enforcement agencies being tasked to investigate their people, I mean, how can we trust that they're actually doing that? I mean, like you said, it's already been.
I'm very thankful because that is and that continues to be the $1 million question. Law enforcement is a very intriguing and a very unique creature in itself. There are, I mean, just look at the FOIA laws, okay, or ways to be able to obtain information. There's basically a shield or a wall that's built around law enforcement, and there's a purpose for that, okay? Because one, the most basic tenet in our Constitution and in our society is you're innocent until proven guilty, okay? And many times, innocence or guilt is tried in a community absent, all the laws and the evidence and everything that's necessary to be able to prove this, rightly so. And then the community becomes very frustrated when what the community felt was a guilty verdict, or that this person was guilty, was tried in a court of law as innocent. And so, but at the same time, you got to recognize there are things that happen in an investigation that can't be told to the community if it is still an active investigation. Will that eventually come out if there's going to be a trial? Sure. But until that time, a lot of this information is kept confidential and it's for the purpose. That was, that officer, that agency has got to be able to prove its case without a reasonable doubt. Okay, and that's a difficult thing to do. And I understand that, and so I've got to, again, I have to respect those bounds that exist so that they can move forward. Now, going back to the $1 million question of, okay, so then how do we trust them? I don't know if that is going to be an outcome or a function or something that this committee or the work that I'm going to be embarking on is going to be able to solve, because that question has been around since law enforcement has been around. Okay, and it's going to take a holistic effort. It's not just these investigations on whether or not there are corrupt police officers or whether or not there are, there are kinks and how to be able to get yourself out of a warrant. This goes back literally centuries of the community wanting to trust a group of individuals to protect them, but then having to trust those group of individuals who protect them. Okay.
Senator, let me kind of flip this a little bit, and we're talking about being able to trust the law enforcement agencies to investigate themselves. But at what point do we have this conversation about, last term, Senator Pito had to recuse himself from anything that was going on with the Department of Corrections because these allegations that surfaced about his son. We have the same thing happening this term, and I don't want you to take a crap on your colleagues, but is this, something that they kind of could have foreseen, and is it an impediment for Senator Pito Terlahi to have oversight of these agencies and departments while his son continues to, be a name in the headlines?
First off, I think that Senator Pito, again, received or was tapped to run these committees, a lot of times based on experience and expertise in certain areas. Okay, Senator Pito, like me, our law enforcement tracks were almost similar. Senator Pito at one point in time was the head of the drug unit in the Guam Police Department at that time, the Department of Public Safety. And so he understands, what the dilemmas are. Now, unfortunately, Senator Pito, like many of us, we have our kids that grow to adults, okay? And there is no familial protection. Senator Pito is not answerable to what his son does as an adult. He's got to answer that to himself for himself. He's got his responsibility. That's why I firmly believe that one of the reasons why he's entrusted and he's empowered me for lack of a better term, to be able to be the oversight for this inquiry. The conversations yesterday with Pito was, look, you do what needs to be done. I'm empowering you. I don't want any basically participation in that because of, again, now the community perception and of my son's alleged involvement in this, and it's still alleged because there hasn't been any other furtherance of prosecution or whatnot that we know of. So could it have been avoided even more? In hindsight, probably, but in foresight, like your conversations, long term, okay, is now that we're in this position, how do we continue to move? Okay, and so that's what we have to work with. He didn't tell me. He says, when you go and you meet with these officials, keep me abreast. If that were the case, I'm saying, Peter, why am I doing this? Right. Because then if you want to stay out of it, then how do we say you're staying out of it? I have to brief you. He said he didn't do any of that. I said, I was the one who brought up. He says, look, these are the courses of action that I probably going to have to take. Okay? And you got to, okay, really, the irony is, you got to trust me, okay? I'm not going to be able to advise you, okay, or inform you on this thing because I don't want to come back that, my direction has come from you, and then, there goes that whole trust thing. Okay, how can we trust that this thing is going to be fair and accurate if there is, now if it comes out and says there is no involvement, okay, and it's clear, then he can see the end report. But I don't have to keep him abreast of everything that's going to happen. That I'm going to have to take, not, under his purview. Or while it is under his purview, I don't need to.
So,
I don't need to get his advice.
right. So moving forward, then, what are we going to see from you as the, I guess, the kind of acting chair of public safety for this particular issue? You're going to meet with everybody,
Well,
GPD, the court. What are you going to do?
well, obviously, there have been, if there has been some concerns that have been raised by other senators, my other colleagues, particular Speaker Talahi and Senator Talina Nelson, and find out, what is it that they're looking for, and is there any relationship to what I have been tasked to do? That way, we're not doing things redundantly, and we don't have the chief of police coming in 3 different times under the guise of 3 different incidents, but then it's all let's work efficiently and effectively on this thing. That's one of the first things that we're going to need to do. Secondly is basically, from my understanding, there has been a letter that Senator Talahi had penned to the chief of police, and I'm going to inquire as to, okay, what of that, and then have sit down conversations with other people, and it's not just with law enforcement. I mean, there are community concerns, and I think that I have a responsibility also to listen to community concerns, to be able to find out, okay, what is this problem that we're talking about, and where does it exist?
Are we looking at like possibly joint oversight hearings?
Possibly. I don't know whether it'll probably rise to that. Rise to that level yet. Okay. There again, and Chris, I've got to make sure that we're not overstepping our bounds in as far as an active investigation. Okay. The last thing in the world that you're going to want, that an investigating officer is going to want is for, some loudmouth from the legislature who says, oh yeah, guys, they're investigating cops. Okay, and for these things, why don't you just say, who these cops are and what they did, and then we'll just have this, this community prosecutorial event. It won't solve it. It won't solve that issue. And so I've got to be very careful of making sure that I stay within the bounds that I need to stay in, and I don't get into basically meddling or ruining an investigation that is probably, if it is going on, based on experience, it may be years in the making. Bree, I was the case agent for an investigation that, before we made our first arrest, we were investigating it for 7 years. And I'm glad that that there was no basically interference, and there was no allegations that the fires that we had to put out. Because that investigation resulted in of the 46 defendants that were indicted, 44 of them were convicted. And we never went to trial because they all pled guilty. The other 2, one's still missing and one's presumed dead. So I understand the intricacies that occur in these investigations, and I understand the length that it can, that it needs to be able to make sure that it is proven beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law, because that's where law enforcement has to answer to, a court of law.
So how do you kind of balance the public outcry for accountability and transparency and the need to protect the sanctity and the validity of any type of ongoing investigations?
Well, I think these are you guys are the experts in this. It's going to take a lot of PR. It's going to take a lot of going out there and maybe in other facets. Is how can law enforcement improve its relationship with the community they serve? Okay, because let's take it. Okay, this doesn't involve every single member of law enforcement, whether it be with the Guam Police Department or the Marshal Service, or customs and quarantine. There are a greater many good, well-intentioned, dedicated officers that are there than there would be the bad apples. Because if there were more bad apples, then trust me, this conversation would be more intense than it is right now. Okay, we'd be sharing, okay, what kind of weapons we're carrying right now, how we're keeping ourselves, because we don't trust them. Right? So it's got to be a stepped up, public relations effort, and improving the processes and the systems in those areas, because this has got basically a leakage effect everywhere. All right, we don't trust that. Officers are corrupt. So guess what? Because of that, we don't want to call the officer to come and help us, or we feel that the officer who probably had to respond, from another village, took more than what we think they should have taken to be able to respond to us. Therefore, they must be corrupt. The mind has a way of being able to find, anytime it says, okay, this person is this way, guess what we're going to do all day long? We're going to find reasons and ways to be able to validate why we feel that way. And anytime there's something else that occurs contrary to that, we discount it. Okay? We think it's fake news. Okay? So we got to work around that, and we got to work towards improving that. Okay? So this is not just alleged corruption of law enforcement because of drug activity. This spills off to alleged corruption because he doesn't get arrested because he is the nephew of this person and that person. So it's got to be worked on.
Well, keep us posted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I appreciate it. And, Chris and Bree, you know how to get a hold of me. I mean, really. And if it's really that important, you don't have to just text. Just call me.
Right on.
Just call me. I've never shied away from this.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I know you guys
All
got
right, thank
session today, so good
Break a
luck.
leg.
Yeah, 2:00.
Okay.
No pun intended.
Oh, 2 o'clock. Okay, after lunch. Nice. Thank you, Senator.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay,
That's
buddy. Take care.
okay, right.
Thanks, Bree.
All right,
Thanks,
take care.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Bye-bye.
There you go. We're going to take some PR, some public relations work. Maybe we could do like a nice jingle. I'm good at jingle writing. If you know a crooked cop, hey, call Senator Frank Blas Jr. and make it stop. Hey, all right. Anyway, yeah, I mean it's tough. I kind of get what he's saying is that if there's ongoing investigations, you don't want to just wade into the middle of it.